So here's another data set we can look at. This is a collection of publications of studies of different sequences of HIV. There are over 100,000 rows of data here. Each row shares the year the study was published, the population group studied, the country studied, and the number of cases recorded. Let's plot the number of studies done in each country. We can see there's a lot of studies being done in Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. Strangely enough, this data set doesn't appear to show any records of studies done in the United States, even though we know there's a large number of cases of HIV in the United States. Were there absolutely no studies of HIV in the US over the years the data was collected? Perhaps the collector of this data was simply not interested in studies in this area. Hard to say. Let's take a different look then. Let's look at a choropleth of the total number of cases recorded in all studies done in each country. The darker the shade of a country, the more cases recorded. It looks like India and Thailand have a large number of cases of HIV recorded over the years, or at least relatively more than these lighter shaded countries like Tanzania or Ethiopia. Interesting. Why don't we dive further and look at the kind of population groups being studied in each country? It looks like Thailand and India account for most of the studies in the data, so it makes sense that we saw that they had a higher number of total recorded cases as well. It looks like Tanzania actually came in fourth here. Let's click in and see the different types of population subgroups studied in Tanzania. From looking at the groups, we can get a sense of the general kinds of studies done around HIV in Tanzania. If we look at the subgroups studied in India, they're a bit different. Perhaps the manner of studies done in India are different as well. Let's add another layer to this distribution chart and see the breakdown of gender in each subgroup. We can almost see a 1-to-1 ratio for subgroup to gender. If we click on India, we can see that this is because these subgroups are pretty restricted to a single gender, or gender wasn't really recorded well in these studies, or just left blank. In contrast, with Tanzania, we can see the gender is a bit more varied between subgroups. From this, there could be more reason to believe that the manner of studies done in India is different from that of Tanzania, but we can't really know. Perhaps this has something to do with the sequences of HIV in those areas as well. So let's take a step back and investigate the quality of the studies and the sequences of HIV studied over the years. Let's use the cohorting toolkit to group sequences by the year they first appeared, projecting the total number of sequences studied in a year over all the years of the data. Here's the output table showing the number of sequences first studied in each year and the number of them recurring in subsequent years. Visualizing it as a bar chart, we can see that the sequences first studied in 1985 are pretty consistently studied in later years. We can also see there's a large batch of new sequences being first studied in 2007, but never studied again afterwards. From the line graph, we can see that the sequences first studied in 1985 make up the bulk of all studies. Now let's instead project the number of unique sequences studied in each year. From here we can see that there are only 10 unique sequences studied in 1985. These 10 sequences show up every year. In contrast, there are almost 2,000 new sequences first studied in 2007. Yet of all studies done in over 20 years, the top contributors are the first 10 that were studied in 1985.